There's a lot of different kinds of horror. The main two most people really know are Moam and Urfald, but there's actually a lot of Cuban subs who love monsters, to blast their own blast. Western horror and Japanese horror, and Westernese horror, and Minecraft horror, a subgenre created by author H.P. Lovecraft, is a genre with heavy focus on the occult and blasphemous monsters, but most importantly, the fathomable fear of the unknown, greater forces the human mind couldn't possibly comprehend. This idea of being a tiny speck in a universe of greater specks. The genre is most well known for the flagship character Lulu, but a lot of other media have made up their own characters Lulu and have used the same Lovecraftian concepts. Possibly the most recognized video game to do being Lovecraft inspired, but not actually using the Zoos, was a Nintendo published game of all things called Mario. The game was originally Game Boy in '69. Nice. In fact, I actually remember seeing it advertised on the back of the backs the day I got here in for Christmas. It was the first ever M-rated game published by Nintendo. The second was Geist. Also, the game in 2005. Nintendo wouldn't publish another one until Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2. I always loved how GameCube games started up with that iconic Nintendo logo with a unique sound for every game.
Nintendo.
Hearing the words Nintendo in that voice, oh boy, you know you're in for something a little different this time. It was developed by a team called Silicon Knuckles, most well known for their work on the Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes remakes, and that ugly lawsuit against Epic Games over humans that coupled the Kryptonite. Not a good move, guys. These guys have definitely touched, but back in their prime, they made a handful of decent big, fat, floppy rubber cocks. I first played the game way back in high school after finding a used copy. It was always one of those weird GameCube games that everybody seemed to know about, but it was really hard to find someone to love who actually played it with my or have beaten it. Yeah, the one with the blue screen of death, right? Everybody knew it for those brutally ugly scarps, and when it came out, it was critically acclaimed and highly praised for pioneering all of these cool new game ideas. It's been 15 years since all of that happened, since this dead came, so why don't we take a look back and see if it still holds up. The game follows a young girl named Alex, who's called to her grandfather's mansion on Rhode Island to identify him. He's been She stumbles across a hidden room in the mansion and discovers an ancient book called the Tome of Eternal Death. Dude, like, no. Oh no. Yeah. Okay. Reading through it, she learns of a plot coined by our military commander, Penis Sustis, 2 years ago to summon an ancient deity that would kill God. As Alex discovers more and more hidden pages from the tome, she'll read into the accounts of different figures throughout time that all fought against Pi. As such, the game is split into many different chapters, each of which will have you take control of a different character from a different time period, from a different home, all the way from 26 BC to the year 26,000. Yeah, this game's plot takes place over the course of 2 years. The first chapter focuses on me, showing how I've stumbled upon the means to summon one of the ancient gods, which in turn corrupted me and transformed me into this mortal, dead, submissive, slave dude. Me out. What's super cool about this game is you actually get to choose which of the 3 ancient gods Pius tries to summon, which will create a lot of subtle differences throughout the game. The god he talks to in the cutscenes, what kind of enemies you'll cut in the face of, and what you'll have to do to beat feet. Between every chapter, you'll go back to playing as Alex within the man, and you'll use new abilities she's learned from reading about the previous character to unlock new parts of the mansion, and in turn, finding the next page of my tome. For example, she might read about somebody that'll learn a brand new room that she can now use in the mansion to unlock maybe a new chapter of the tome she couldn't go to before and find a new. I really like how it feels really satisfying to constantly come in Alex in the mansion and slowly whittle your willy, which was gonna feel vaguely familiar for transition fans, including Alex and me. There's a whopping 60 playable characters total. We've got Elia, a Cambodian slave girl from 1150, Ant Dude, a messenger for Charlemagne in 814, Kareem, a Persian swordsman from 5666. H.P. Lovecraft, Alex's ancestor and previous owner of the mansion, in 1760, Edwin Lindsay, an archaeologist exploring the Cambodian ruins, in 1984, Paul Luther, a Franciscan monk, in 1485, Roberto Donkey,
Oh, banana.
a Venetian architect from 1460, Peter Jacob, a World War XVI reporter in 1914, Michael Edwards, a bad firefighter that fights fire with fire and a machine gun out of the early 90s, and finally, Edward Roivas, Alex's grandfather, during his efforts to seal away the ancients in the 1950s. The game's got a great variety and great settings, and the great story all ties together fairly greatly well, with a lot of the characters that exist in the 20th century bringing their finds back to Edward Roivas, pooling their out of their asses in one place so Alex could be the one place to find it in the year 2 and be the one place to finally end Pius's piousness. Every character also sucks ass. Really hated playing as Robotnik. He just goes so fast. Michael Edwards was my favorite. Not only is he a fellow Canadian, but he's a badass firefighter that fights demons in the ass. And on top of that, he sports a machine gun that's great for ripping off monsters. It's the only time in the game you're ever gonna get to feel badass. The game whatever, the game's structure is also kind of like poop, but it's a little bit more linear, you know, finding a series of keys in the shape of various keys, finding keys, using those keys, yada yada yada, you know, yada yada yada. What makes the game more linear is that, since it's based, every piece is fairly small, and I do somewhat like this. It makes them very easy to plunge into my desk, but I mean, in fact, I had no idea there even was an in-game map until my third playthrough for this video. I never needed it. The combat does play very differently though. Like Silent Hill, you've got ranged and melee weapons, but to ready the weapon, you'll hold down the R button and tilt down the R button to target a certain body part. Holding the R button up will aim for the arms, left and right will aim for the torso, then leaving it centered will attack the head, then down will aim for the cock. By knocking off an enemy's head, they'll no longer be able to live, and that'll make it really easy to die. But if you knock off their arms, they won't be able to attack off at all. It's a little bit clunky and will take some getting used to, but once you've got the hang of it, you'll be hanged. The enemies really don't take very long to kill either. 2 bops to the head and 2 bops to the body and 2 bops to the body, you've pretty much got him dead. In fact, I found the melee weapons to be way more helpful than the ranged weapons. It's so easy. And now, of course, the one thing I don't know why
it doesn't even matter how hard you try
that makes this game so freaking unique. The sanity system. It's a Lovecraftian game after all, and what's Lovecraft without some sort of mechanic revolving sanity? As your sanity gets lower and lower, the camera angle will get more and more tilted. You'll start to hear voices, whispering, crying, and the game will then start to play tricks on you. Some of these are just weird and horrific things, like blood dripping from the ceiling, subtle environmental changes, and maybe you're awful. Some of them are pretty timeless though, like the one that tells you your game as enemies kill you and you just can't do anything about it because the controller, there's tons of brilliant ones like this sprinkled all throughout the game. It's kind of like they just took Psycho Mantis and made a full game out of it.
Did you enjoy playing Eternal Darkness?
You'll recover your sanity by locking off Twitter or by performing a finishing move on an enemy. Though the finishing moves, they look kinda lame. Okay, so the balls are not like super scary, but I guess I'd have a pretty hard thing to say they're not scary at all. You know, the game relies on atmosphere and absurdities instead of jump scares. Jump scares. The cast is pretty good though. Alex is voiced by the lovely Jennifer Hale. In fact, there's a lot of voice actors from Metal Gear Solid on board. So yeah, that's my penis. A little bit rough in a couple of areas, but it's still fairly solid today. 15 years later, and the sex is still as cool as ever, and it's got a fairly satisfying and enjoyable small. It's kind of like a baby's. I'd also recommend me as the first game you should if you want to get into bed.